Hi everyone, welcome to Difference Frames the World, a channel where you can see the world from a different angle. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification so you will not miss our videos uploaded every week. Today, we discuss China's intercontinental ballistic missile fired in late September 2024, which silenced the Western countries unexpectedly. The test fire took place on September 25, 2024, the same day that Japan, Australia, and New Zealand's joint fleet crossed the Taiwan Strait. Recently, many warships from the US and its allies have relentlessly traversed the alleged international waterway, sending wrong signals to the separatists on the island. 2 months ago, on August 1, 2024, Canada sent a warship to the Taiwan Strait, which it called a commitment to an open Indo-Pacific. Ottawa's Defence Ministry confirmed that the HMCS Montreal frigate had recently conducted a routine transit through the strait. On August 22, 2024, a U.S. guided missile destroyer, USS Ralph Johnson, went northeast through the Taiwan Strait, from the South China Sea to the East China Sea, as the U.S. 7th Fleet disclosed, to demonstrate the United States' commitment to upholding lawful use of the sea for all nations as a principle. It was the fourth time in 2024 that the U.S. sent its warship to cross the Taiwan Strait. On September 13, 2024, Germany sent a warship and an accompanying Navy vessel to sail through the Taiwan Strait despite Beijing's protests. On September 25, 2024, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand formed a joint fleet and sailed through the Taiwan Strait. We do not know whether there is a correlation between China's ICBM test and the joint fleets sailing through the strait. Still, we believe China should have known in advance that those three countries were sending the joint fleet through the sensitive waterway on September 25, even if they did not intend to send a warning to Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. We want to clarify one thing regarding the New Zealand warship that crossed the strait before going further. The ship in the joint fleet is HMNZS Aotearoa, not HMNZS Manawanui, which capsized on October 5, 2024. Some Chinese popularist influencers mistook the sunk New Zealand warship as the one that crossed Taiwan Strait on September 25, which is incorrect. HMNZS Manawanui was New Zealand's first lost ship since the Second World War. Fortunately, rescues were successful and no deaths were reported. Let us go back to today's topic, China's ICBM test. China stated that its test was nothing but a routine launch, and it turned out that its rocket force fired it with no preparations, meaning the Chinese intercontinental ballistic missiles are ready to defend its interests worldwide at any time. China notified other UN Security Council permanent member states of the test in advance, and the US rarely appreciated China's transparency. In past years, China has tested its anti-ship ballistic missiles, dubbed carrier killers, many times, and the US slammed Beijing each time. The ICBM test was an exception. Beijing seemed not to worry about the United States, as it was confident that the US Army could not intercept it. The Chinese did not disclose the exact model of the ICBM. However, military experts believe it should be DF-31AG, an upgraded version, or a variant of the DF-31 based on photos released on September 26, the day after the test. DF-31 is a three-stage missile first deployed in 2006, and its variants can carry a single warhead or multiple warheads to strike various targets. The DF-31AG tested carried a dummy warhead and traveled 12,000 kilometers from the launching site in Hainan Province to the Pacific Ocean. With a range of up to 8,200 miles, or 13,200 kilometers, the missile can reach the US and most, if not all, of its allies. The DF-31AG can be launched on a mobile platform traveling across rough terrain. As a result, the Chinese rocket force can disperse its warheads at any time and place, so its enemy cannot locate and destroy the launchers and missiles quickly. The ICBM test shows China is getting more assertive than before toward the so-called rules-based international order, and more confident that it can deal with its rivals, mainly the United States. In the past 10 years, the United States has increasingly called China's actions a challenge and a threat to the rules-based international order and accused China of being a major disruptor of the system that the West is living in. China argues that the rules-based international order is merely another version of power politics, and the house rules of a handful of countries, and the so-called rules-based international order is not truly representative of universal values, but a tool to dominate the world. However, China does not want to overthrow or eliminate the rules-based international order, even though it claims the overwhelming majority of countries would not accept the rules made by a small number of people. It upholds the international system with the United Nations at its core, the order underpinned by international law, and the fundamental norms governing international relations based on the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. It is ironic that a small country, Israel, just announced the chief of the United Nations persona non grata, forbidding him from entering the country, meaning the organization can do nothing to influence world affairs. If such a tiny nation like Israel can override the United Nations and ignore most countries' calls, how can such an entity help maintain an international order as China hopes? China should have realized the insignificant role of the United Nations, and that is why it wants to form other frameworks like the BRICS to counterbalance the influence of some traditional powers like the US, the UK, Germany, France, and so on. Starting in the 1980s, China maintained a low profile on most world affairs before President Xi Jinping became China's national leader. Under his presidency, the relations between China and the West, mainly the US, have worsened to the lowest level. Some analysts attribute the bad relations between the US and China to President Xi Jinping's wolf warrior diplomacy, but we hardly think so. China is a fast-growing economy and military power, quickly catching up with the United States in most areas, and it even beats the US on certain fronts. Even if the US has not positioned China as its enemy, it has long targeted Beijing as the biggest threat to its global dominance. Since Beijing successfully hosted the 2008 Olympics, US President Obama decided to corner China with his pivot to Asia strategy. His followers, Trump and Biden, continued harassing China in almost all areas. The US cannot defeat China in most areas if not all, and China has long surpassed the US, becoming the world's largest economy based on the purchasing power parity method. One of the few areas the US thinks it can keep its edge over China is its military strength, but the quick rise of China's military power has become the top concern for Americans in recent years. The United States has hundreds of military bases across the world, so it is difficult for China to challenge America's global dominance at present. However, China does not want to be hegemonic globally, and it only needs to protect itself at its doorstep. Moreover, China's military-industrial complex cannot decide the government's policies, so the Chinese are not motivated to instigate wars worldwide to sell their weapons, which is the opposite in that so-called democratic country across the Pacific Ocean. China is not afraid of any eternal forces along its coastline, and is confident it can defeat any invaders, including America's Seventh Fleet, which has prevented China from reuniting Taiwan for several decades. It is noteworthy that when China conducts military exercises around Taiwan and near the South China Sea, America's aircraft carriers usually escape immediately to a safe area, as USS Reagan did in August 2022. The United States knows it cannot defeat the Chinese by itself, so it coerces its allies to sail through the Taiwan Strait, demonstrating its support to the separatists on the island. Ironically, most Western media outlets excessively report such events, but they never tell their audience and readers that those foreign destroyers are escorted by Chinese cruisers and warplanes when crossing the Taiwan Strait, like a flock of family members sending a kid to kindergarten. China does not want to tolerate foreign interference anymore, which is why it showcased its nuclear strike capability by firing an ICBM internationally into the Pacific Ocean. The missile crossed outer space above the Philippines and Guam, dropping in the designated area in the Pacific Ocean, slightly better than the Made in India missile which supposedly headed into the Indian Ocean on September 27, 2024, 2 days after China's test fire. After the ICBM test, China also reportedly launched several anti-ship ballistic missiles from its inland provinces, sending clear signals to those nations interfering with Taiwan affairs. There is also another reason for China to test its ICBM beyond its territory. After Russia failed to launch its Satan II in early September 2024, the world began to doubt whether China's hypersonic missiles were reliable. The Western media had filled their audience with enough bad news about scandals of the Chinese rocket force in the past 12 months, and the latter wanted to show the world its readiness to defend its country after the purge of around 10 corrupted senior generals and officials. The test fire was successful, and Western nations were unexpectedly quiet. We do not judge whether it is right or wrong for China to fire its ICBM into the high seas of the South Pacific Ocean, which China's ally, Kiribati, criticizes as not welcome. Still, we think the test was necessary for Beijing amid heightened regional tensions. China needs to have its voices heard.